Have you ever experienced that frustrating moment of looking for a parking spot, finding a perfect one, and at the last second someone cuts in front of you? Or maybe you came back to your car and found it blocked in an absurd way. Well, some people face situations like this and decide to get revenge. From hilarious pranks to epic responses to inconsiderate drivers, these stories show that sometimes karma arrives quickly. These are the revenges you will watch today. A man from Seattle decided to fence in a Mercedes Car2Go vehicle that was parked in his garage in the year 2019. Car2Go is a car-sharing and rental company founded by Daimler in the year 2008 in Germany, which operated in the United States of America until 2019. On that occasion, the user of the vehicle parked in front of the resident's garage and, outraged, the resident decided to surround the car with a handmade fence built right there, preventing the vehicle from being removed. On the fence, the man also left some notes stating that the area was private property and that no one could cross. In addition, another note addressed Car2Go, asking the company to resolve the issue and remove the vehicle since it was not responding. A scene recorded by a parking lot security camera showed the moment when a driver who was waiting for a spot to free up saw that same spot being taken by another driver who simply cut in with complete nerve. The footage shows that the driver in the Jeep was calmly waiting for another vehicle to leave the spot so that he could pull in. But exactly at the moment the vehicle exited, another driver arrived and went straight in, stealing the spot. Outraged, the Jeep driver waited for the other driver to leave his car and walk away, then decided to tow the car out of the spot by dragging it backwards and taking the place that, by right, was his. The spot thief driver's vehicle sat there, abandoned in the middle of the lot, blocking other cars from getting out. The video does not show his reaction upon returning to find his car like that, but it must have been quite a surprise. A man arrived at his home in the middle of the night and found a car parked blocking his garage entrance. So he decided to take matters into his own hands. Having a tow rope on hand, he hooked it to the offending car and pulled it into the middle of the street, finally allowing himself to enter his garage. Besides doing that, he also called the police to report the problem, and the officers managed to maneuver the car, placing it at the edge of the opposite curb and, of course, issuing a ticket to the driver who had parked there. The next day, the other driver must have returned and been completely bewildered by the situation. His car was on the other side of the street, moved and sporting a fine. A man got a pleasant surprise when he arrived at a parking lot and saw his car completely trapped, as other drivers had parked in a way that made it impossible for him to leave. Frustrated by the inconvenience, he called traffic wardens and the police, who arrived after a delay to try to sort things out. The man explained the situation, showed his vehicle, and the traffic warden prepared the ticket. In the meantime, a woman who was driving one of the cars that blocked him arrived and tried to explain herself, but of course it did not help much. After a few moments, the police also arrived, took note of everything, instructed the offending drivers, and issued fines. The trapped driver was not going to give up until justice was served.
So this person was there breaking the law. Doing a story on the people who park poorly on the street.
In the end, all the drivers of the cars that had blocked the spot showed up, took control of their vehicles, and finally freed the parking space so that the man could drive away. A woman, married to a person with a disability, arrived at what appeared to be a supermarket parking lot and noticed cars parked in spots reserved for people with disabilities. Knowing this was not allowed, she decided to call the authorities. In a video she recorded herself, she shows the lot full and the vehicles occupying the spaces marked for people with disabilities. Outraged to learn that none of those drivers was actually disabled, she exposed the license plates and called the police. The video does not show what happened next, but according to reports, the police arrived and waited for the drivers inside the market so they could be fined and warned for their wrongdoing.
And they should have it hanging from the mirror. So, yeah, AMG, illegally parked.
She made a point of posting everything on her social media and YouTube channel, making the video very popular, with many people sharing that they had suffered the same in parking lots around the world. The National Geographic Channel decided to conduct a kind of test by taking some people with disabilities to a location and, in the lot, observing whether the spots designated for them were free. They were placed inside a kind of minibus and driven to the lot. Upon arrival, they found all the spots reserved for people with disabilities occupied by drivers who were not disabled. Everything was broadcast on the program, and the minibus had to stop next to a spot so that the disabled individuals could get out, creating a powerful scene. A woman, driver of one of the cars occupying a disability spot, exited the establishment and, judging by her reaction, felt very bad about what she had done.
All right, is this our person here coming out? She's looking as if she is.
Her look of regret upon realizing her mistake was exactly what the program intended, a profound impact, showing everyone that spots reserved for people with disabilities are vital for their mobility and accessibility. Once again, a bold driver cut in front of a woman who was parking, stole part of the space, and drove off. When she realized what had happened, the woman saw that her car, though tight, would still fit in the spot, so she parked anyway, trapping the other driver's car. When he returned, he found no room to get in, standing there gesturing angrily. No one told him to be rude, and besides stealing the spot, he had parked all crooked. The funniest part is that because he left his car in such a narrow gap, the woman to get out had to open the sunroof and climb out that way. At least the difficulty of exiting through the roof ensured some sweet revenge. A driver was surprised when he arrived at the lot and found his car surrounded by two others, leaving no space for him to enter. As you can see in the footage, he had parked his car occupying two spots in a completely crooked manner. Seeing this, the other drivers deliberately trapped the car so that he could not get in. Thus, he had no choice but to enter through the trunk opening and, unbelievably, managed to take the wheel and drive away. The scene of him squeezing in through the trunk to get inside is hilarious. It was the only way he could enter. He could not complain after all, he was completely in the wrong for how he had parked. A rather bizarre recording shows the moment when a pickup driver, irritated, takes a very strange revenge on a car that was blocking his exit from a parking lot. The man had parked his truck in a regular spot in the lot. However, another driver arrived and parked his vehicle right behind the truck, outside any marked space. When the pickup driver returned, he was confused, and although angry, he decided to wait for the other driver. But he never arrived, so the pickup driver took a drastic, bizarre measure. He grabbed a saw and literally cut the car in half, just as you heard. After sawing the car, he pulled one half to each side and finally managed to drive his truck out. Once he left, he pushed the two halves back together to trick the other driver, who arrived, got in, and drove off only with the front half of the vehicle, in a scene many believe was staged. The content creator known as Magic Murray published a video that went viral on social media in which he teaches some drivers a lesson. In the video, Murray sets up a prank involving a car parked improperly in a spot for people with disabilities. He handcuffs a wheelchair to the vehicle as a way of drawing attention to the disrespect of reserved spots. The video shows the driver's reaction upon discovering the situation, highlighting the importance of respecting parking spaces designated for people with special needs.
No? What happened? Dude, that's great.
When the driver arrived and saw the wheelchair handcuffed to his door handle, he was bewildered and could not enter his own vehicle. Moments later, Murray arrived and removed the chair, leaving the driver with a valuable lesson. In Boston, it is common for residents to reserve parking spots they have cleared after a snowfall. Still, one resident could not get his spot freed and decided to take revenge. Angry at finding a car parked in the spot he had painstakingly cleared, he decided to return all the snow he had removed while the car was still there, covering it deliberately as an act of revenge. There are no recordings of the driver's reaction upon seeing his car buried in snow, which surely was not pleasant. As mentioned, residents often reserve spots by marking them with an object. In this case, he had placed a shelf in the spot, but the driver ignored it and parked beside it, further enraging him. A man who had parked his car in a strictly prohibited area must have regretted it when he returned to find his vehicle in its final state. What happened is that another man, who apparently ran a workshop on the premises, found himself unable to move his work vehicles because of the illegally parked car. Furious, he grabbed a baseball bat, smashed the car's side view mirror, then the window glass, and pushed the car further forward. Not satisfied, he called a friend with a concrete mixer truck and asked for a favor. His friend arrived and poured all the leftover concrete inside the vehicle. Yes, the car was completely covered in concrete. The whole scene was captured by a man in his own car across the street, witnessing everything. As we can see, the car was coated in concrete and certainly totaled. The man who did the damage drove away, and there is no record of the owner's reaction, but one can imagine it was not a happy one. Police officers who had received a report of a vehicle parked irregularly in a disability spot decided to take action, and it was all recorded. In the footage, the officers discuss how this problem has become increasingly common, with drivers sadly not respecting spaces reserved for people with disabilities, occupying them and leaving those who truly need them stranded. The officers went to the lot and, upon arrival, found a yellow pickup parked in the disabled spot. As they approached, they found a woman in the passenger seat, and when questioned, she said the driver was an elderly person, which the placard confirmed, but the spot was designated for disabled drivers, not the elderly.
Hi there. I'm Jeff. I'm with WKBN.
My doctor will give it to me.
But there might be other people that are even worse than you that might need this.
The woman also said the driver was inside the shopping center. The police then explained that this was not allowed and issued a fine for the vehicle. While the situation was resolved, other people arrived looking for a disabled spot that was illegally occupied. Some drivers had their cars towed for parking in prohibited areas, and many were furious. In footage from the tow truck's dash camera, the driver shows the moment he arrives at the lot and begins towing vehicles parked where they should not be. Using a cable, he pulls each car onto the truck, and some owners arrive just as their car is being lifted. Too late.
There's no tear, I just bought it. That's what I'm saying.
Besides having their car towed to a lot, causing major headaches, the drivers also received a fine for knowingly parking in a forbidden spot. Once again, during a police operation to check a parking lot for correct usage, officers caught several drivers using the wrong spots. Undercover officers were stationed around the lot, monitoring drivers who acted illegally, and many were caught parking in the wrong places, especially in spots reserved for people with disabilities. All were approached by the police and exposed on camera.
Because you may have a very, very valid reason. But do you have a handicap placard?
I do not.
You do not. So
Yeah.
why are you parked in this space?
I gotta go get my daughter for flu shot. School's right at the end.
Yeah, but you don't have a handicap placard.
Drivers often do this because they cannot find a spot and prefer to park incorrectly rather than look elsewhere. As a result, they were publicly exposed and fined. A driver waiting to park lost out when she got out of her car to complain to the driver behind her. Footage from the rear dash camera of the car behind shows the woman circling the lot searching for a spot until she saw a car exit and free one. She waited there while the car behind her, recording everything, also waited. At one point, unsatisfied with how close the other car was to her bumper, she got out to complain and lost the spot to another car. The moment she stepped out to complain, the other vehicle, coming from the opposite direction, turned in and took the spot she had been waiting for. In the end, she not only made a fool of herself but also missed out on the space. In a college parking lot, a student cut in line ahead of everyone waiting for a space and simply parked her car in front of them all. Despite the other cars honking to indicate there was a queue, she did not care and left. The others had to find another spot, and luckily they found even better ones further on. However, holding a grudge, one of the cheated drivers went to her car and folded in the side mirrors as revenge. Later, as she left the campus, he recorded her getting into the car without noticing the folded mirrors, driving off like that. She probably realized it later and had to stop and get out to fix them. Don't forget to subscribe so you can watch more videos like this.